Vacationers flocking back to the city as the long weekend draws to a close. The health chief gives more clarity on the city's public hospital fee reform. And a survivor's account of an Israeli military attack on the Red Crescent medical convoy in southern Gaza. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Vacationers are coming back to Hong Kong as the long weekend of Qingming Festival draws to an end. As of 10 a.m. today, more than 69,000 people had entered the city through various checkpoints. Samantha Lee reports.
Early this morning, travelers were returning to the city after taking high-speed trains back to West Kowloon Station. This woman said she decided to come back early to avoid the peak traffic. This man said the trains were fully booked, so he had to get up at 6 a.m. to take an early train. And this resident said he had bought the returning ticket one day before the Qingming Festival. Public transport services connecting every border crossing were strengthened to cope with the surge in passengers. Over the past 2 days, the Immigration Department reported a total of 1.18 million cross-border travelers entering the city through the various land border control points. That's in addition to 1.14 million travelers leaving the city during the same period. Meanwhile, some representatives of the catering industry said business dropped by 10 to 15% year-on-year, as many local residents spent the long weekend on the mainland. Leung Chun-Hua, chairman of the Association for Hong Kong Catering Services Management, said many people went north for grave sweeping at leisure. He added the increase in tourist arrivals could barely offset the effects of local consumers heading out of the city. With the Easter holiday around the corner, tourism sector leaders estimate that there will be around 3,000 outbound tour groups, similar to last year. About half of the tour groups are expected to use the high-speed rail. Fanny Yeung, executive director of the Travel Industry Council of Hong Kong, said high-speed trains can reach multiple spots, and the fares are also cheaper than peak season flight tickets. She expects the next peak season for mainland tourists in Hong Kong will be the Labor Day Golden Week, as Easter is not a public holiday on the mainland. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Most services at public hospitals will raise their fees early next year, with a $10,000 cap on the expenses for each patient. Speaking on TVB News, Secretary for Health Lo Chung-mau said mechanisms will be in place to prevent abuse of the waivers after the expenses exceed the $10,000 cap. The city's public hospitals are set to see a fee reform with a fee cut for urgent and severe cases and price increases for other services. 3 major safety nets will be established. They include an annual cap of $10,000 on medical expenses for each patient. Speaking on TVB News, Secretary for Health Lo Chung-mau said if a patient's clinical condition does not require certain treatment or hospital stays, doctors won't approve the services and patients won't qualify for the waiver. There are also concerns on whether there are enough workers to approve the applications, as the expanded safety net could ratchet up the number of recipients of waivers from 300,000 to 1.4 million. Lo said not everyone among the 1.4 million will apply right away. On patients who fail to attend medical appointments, including for CT scans, Dr. Lo said they will still be charged, and authorities are studying ways to implement that, including possible deposits charged when patients book the service. He compares the move to hotels billing guests who fail to show up. With the emergency room fee hike, Lo hopes to trim the number of semi-urgent or non-urgent visits by 10%. Financial Secretary Paul Chan said he will announce on Tuesday the 4th batch of strategic enterprises that will set up shop in Hong Kong. Among the more than 10 enterprises from overseas are firms in the artificial intelligence field. Chan said the government will strengthen its efforts to bring in more businesses to help the city prepare for the escalating trade war. Writing on his weekly blog, the finance chief said the latest batch of strategic enterprises cover an array of industries, including firms that specialize in producing commercial robots and medical equipment. Speaking of the U.S. reciprocal tariffs, Chan said Hong Kong as a global trading hub will inevitably be affected. He said the government will assist local enterprises through different measures to tackle their capital flow problems and develop new markets. The death toll from Myanmar's earthquake is nearing 3,500. The official number that have died stands at 3,471. Chinese aid workers have begun offering medical services in Mandalay, setting up clinics on street corners. The field hospitals are mostly carrying out routine checks but can stretch to surgery if required. America has offered $9 million to Myanmar. 3 U.S. agencies for international development workers have traveled to Myanmar after the quake, but then learned they were being laid off. A survivor has been telling the story of the Israeli military attack on a medical convoy in southern Gaza last month. 15 of Munza Abed colleagues died. Video of the moments before their death has been released by the Palestinian Crescent, forcing Israel's military to admit their troops mistakenly identified the aid workers as a threat. David Garrett reports.
The moment medics in Gaza run for cover after coming under attack. A Red Crescent aid worker who survived verified this video filmed by one of the victims. The footage was discovered on a phone found next to a body in a mass grave. Survivor Munza Abed spoke to the Palestinian Red Crescent. He says Israeli soldiers started shooting without warning, contradicting original Israeli claims. The IDF had said the vehicles did not have emergency signals on when their troops opened fire in southern Gaza last month. They've now admitted that was a mistake as further investigations continue. In the phone interview with the Red Crescent, Munza Abed says, I took cover in the back seat. I didn't hear a sound from my colleagues. I was then surprised by people speaking Hebrew. Special forces from the Israeli army wearing their uniforms and with guns. They opened the door and they kicked me out. He goes on to say he was beaten and interrogated. The Israeli military now admits the group were unarmed when they opened fire. The 15 aid workers were buried by troops. The UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs dug through debris to find them buried alongside mangled but clearly marked emergency vehicles. The video that exposed Israeli failings was said to be shot by Rafat Redwan. He is heard saying prayers just before being shot. Criticism for Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu as protests against his war with Hamas in Gaza continue. The weekly demonstration wants an end to the bloodshed and a deal cut to bring hostages home. Netanyahu heads to Washington tomorrow. US President Donald Trump pledged to end the violence, but a 2-month ceasefire fell apart after the next step in the peace process could not be agreed. David Garrett, TVB News.
The death toll from Friday's Russian missile strike in the central Ukrainian city of Kryvyi Rih has risen to 18, including 9 children. A further 72 people were injured. This as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met the leaders of the British and French armed forces in Kyiv Saturday. They discussed the potential deployment of a multinational peacekeeping force to Ukraine, despite the reluctance of U.S. President Donald Trump to provide security guarantees. Tracy Furness reports.
The aftermath of Friday's Russian ballistic missile strike, more than 20 residential buildings damaged in Kryvyi Rih, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown. A children's playground was not spared. 9 children were killed in the attack as people laid flowers at a makeshift memorial. Parents and friends comforting each other. The head of the city's defense council, Alexander Vilkol, said those injured ranged from a 3-month-old baby to elderly residents. 40 remained hospitalized, including 2 children in critical condition and 17 in serious condition, he said. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed that it had carried out a high-precision missile strike with a high-explosive warhead on a restaurant where a meeting with unit commanders and Western instructors was taking place. Local resident Alina, who witnessed the attack, said, I still can't digest what I've seen. Black windows in a residential building, bodies of people lying, and shouts for help. I can't believe it happened. Meanwhile, an industrial facility in Russia's Volga River region in Mordovia was hit by a drone strike this weekend. Telegram channels said Russia's target was an optical fiber factory in Saransk, and 3 women were injured as several fires broke out during a Russian airstrike on the southern Ukrainian region of Mykolaiv. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
And still ahead, Elon Musk says he hopes the US and EU can get to a zero tariff situation. Seniors and children learning alongside each other in a special intergenerational program. And Tibetan ceramic companies working to boost local employment. Welcome back. A wide range of goods entering the United States have already been hit by the new baseline tariffs announced by U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday. Washington's country-specific tariffs will kick in on April 9th. Leaders from the UK and France have agreed to maintain close contact over the tariff impact, while U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has warned of greater inflation and economic growth risks. Danny Zhou tells us more.
Donald Trump earlier announced the so-called reciprocal tariffs despite widespread opposition. He imposed a 10% minimum baseline tariff on nearly all trading partners of the U.S., with higher rates on certain countries. In a social media post, the U.S. president touted the move as an economic revolution. He told businesses to hang tough and said China would be hit much harder than the U.S. The Chinese government issued a statement and criticized the U.S. for using excessive tariffs as a weapon to exert maximum pressure for selfish gains. By pursuing a zero-sum game in the name of reciprocity and fairness, the U.S. is actually seeking America first and America only, the statement said. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres also warned that nobody wins in a trade war. Vietnamese leader To Lam is reportedly negotiating with the Trump administration in a bid to remove the planned 46% tariff on Vietnamese goods. The European Union is being hit with 20% duties, while Britain a lower 10%. On Saturday, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer talked with French President Emmanuel Macron over the phone. A Downing Street spokesperson said the two leaders both agreed that a trade war is in nobody's interests, but nothing should be off the table. Starmer has pledged to protect British businesses from Trump's tariff bliss with industrial policies. Jaguar Land Rover announced on Saturday that it would pause shipments to America for a month in the wake of a 25% U.S. levy on foreign car imports. The manufacturer said it is working to address the new trading terms and develop mid- to longer-term plans. Meanwhile, Tesla's CEO Elon Musk, who is Trump's confidant, advocates for a US-Europe zero-tariff deal at the Italian League Party's Congress.
I'm hopeful that there can be a very close relationship with America and Europe. I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero-tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America.
Economists have warned that Trump's tariff bombshell would increase the risk of a recession. At an event in Arlington, Fed Chair Jerome Powell acknowledged that inflation has the potential to be more persistent.
It is now becoming clear that tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected. And the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. The size and duration of these effects remains uncertain.
Powell also made it clear that the central bank is not in a hurry to cut interest rates. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
The latest Student Health Service annual health report released by the Department of Health found the amount of recreational screen time among primary students has exacerbated. The report shows that primary pupils spent at least 2 hours a day in year 2023 to 24 on entertainment via electronic screen devices. That's higher than the pre-pandemic level. Professor Paul Yip, director of the Center for Suicide Research and Prevention at the University of Hong Kong, said the more students use such devices for entertainment, including surfing social media platforms such as Instagram, the more likely they will suffer from depression or anxiety. Yip also suggests stepping up controls on electronic devices and online games to minimize negative impacts on teens and children. British rock band Coldplay will play at Kai Tak Stadium on Tuesday. The Transport Department called on cross-border travelers to plan journeys in advance. Coldplay will be the first band to hold concerts at Kai Tak Stadium with shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. The department said there will be more frequent MTR train services on Tunma and East Rail lines. The last train to Lawu will depart from Sungwang Toi at 10:59 p.m. and from Kai Tak at 11:01 p.m. respectively. Any cross-boundary spectator who misses those trains could then take two special bus routes to Lok Ma Chau Santon Public Transport Interchange or to Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridgeport. There will also be cross-border coaches departing from Kai Tak to Lok Ma Chau Huanggang, but tickets must be bought in advance. A daycare experience across generations. An elderly center and a kindergarten have rolled out a 10-week intergenerational program that brings together children and seniors with tasks designed to bridge and match their various needs and capabilities. Take a look.
Say hello.
It's playtime for not just these kindergarteners, but also the seniors.
Say hello.
A kindergarten in Chengguano has joined forces with an elderly daycare center just a few minutes walk away for this twice-a-month learning program. Each lesson comes with a different theme, from science, math, and art experiences to physical exercises. Fostering exchanges across not just generations, but also across cultures.
Doing like the fingerprint and scripts.
Enjoying the time too is retiree Peter, a former businessman in the import-export trade.
A lot of kids come here, we meet together with the kids. We are so happy, play together with them.
They would feel like even though they're old or even though they're sitting on a wheelchair, they're still able to teach the kids. Interesting enough, they actually share a lot of same learning goals. Say, for example, in terms of their finer motor skills.
After completing 10 sessions, children will be given a graduation certificate as a memento. The organization also hopes to extend such an intergenerational learning model to more elderly centers and nursery service units.
Okay, wait. Yeah.
They have a big change. All the kids are more patient, they're more caring to the elderly. They also have a bit of empathy. That's really helpful for the daily learning.
In recent years, the number of university graduates in China has reached record highs. However, it has been overshadowed by unemployment rates that soared to a 2-year high in February. In view of that, some porcelain factories in Lhasa, Tibet have worked to provide more jobs by boosting links between schools and businesses. Tanka art, a Tibetan tradition. Featuring a 4-armed guanyin from Tibetan Buddhism and lifelike portrayal of an old Tibetan man. These exquisite bone china pieces embody the history and culture of Tibet. They are not crafted by the hands of experienced masters, but young apprentices who have just graduated. 20-year-old Chimba Chiran began studying ceramic craftsmanship at Tibet Vocational and Technical College at the age of 15. Now he is an employee at this ceramic company. Jimba said compared with the traditional tanka, the ceramic tanka is more resistant to water, fire, and dirt. Li Chu, the deputy general manager of the porcelain company, said local training at school followed by immediate job opportunities have promoted the growth of the industry. 2 years ago, the company from Zhejiang was invited by the government to visit Tibet. They found that owing to the low air pressure, ordinary kitchenware can only be heated to about 80 degrees Celsius, making it hard for households to cook hot meals. With that, they decided to set up a factory in Tibet to make special kitchenware. Tai Shuailong, president of the Plateau Cookware Company, said they are among the first such factories set up there. There is government support including rent relief for these factories and subsidies for equipment. The local government said it will provide apprenticeship subsidies to encourage enterprises to hire recent graduates. The 15th National Games will include 23 competition and demonstration events for the public. And Hong Kong will host a bowling event in August. Celine Chan has more.
She was also and all go. A little gutter ball would also be no big deal, as your teammates will always have your back. Bowling will be introduced as a mass participation event in the upcoming 15th National Games for the first time. Local bowlers gathered at Kaita Sports Park's top bowl 10-pin bowling to compete for a chance to represent Hong Kong in the National Games. This secondary 4 student gave it a try and formed a team to compete, hoping to play at home as the event will take place at the Kaita Sports Park. Her teammates include a visually impaired bowler with over 10 years of experience.
The association received an overwhelming response of over 90 men and women teams registering for the selection and arranged 2 additional days for selection, with the last selection being held on the 12th of April.
The Hong Kong-China 10-pin Bowling Congress said they are fully prepared for the event, which is set to take place in August.
In actual fact, the tournament is not very complicated. It's divided into the men division and the women division, and they come in a unit of a 5-man team and a 5-woman team. And then the 5 bowlers in each team can play in the single, but in the double, they can only put forward 1 pair. And then all of them bowl in the 5-person team event.
Registration for some mass participation events, including broadcast gymnastics, is still open to the public. Celine Chan, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching. Have a great week ahead.